Welcome to Girl Talk with your girl Melissa, and tonight I am talking to my girls. We have Girl Talk with my girls tonight, and we are talking about the past podcast, the Single Mother Diaries, overcoming adversity. But we are just gonna have fun tonight. It's nothing formal. We were single moms. Some of us have been, some of us still are. We just want to talk a little bit about the podcast and how we relate to some of the things that the ladies have said. So listen, if you haven't had a chance to go listen to the podcast, go ahead. It's on all podcast platforms. Girl Talk, TAWK with an exclamation point at the end. But I'd like to introduce my girls tonight. Tiff, tell the listeners a little bit about you.
Hello. My name is Tiffany, and I have been a single mom at different chapters or seasons in my life. Definitely enjoyed the past podcast on the Single Mom Diary. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. I'm looking forward to giving some feedback on that tonight. Thank you for having me.
All right. And Cassandra.
Hey. I'm Cassandra. And yes, I am now a single mom. I didn't start out that way, but I have been for several years now. So like Tiff, looking forward to talking about just different points that were mentioned in the podcast.
Yeah, this is a casual environment. We're girls and we're just talking about some of the things that you may have heard in the podcast that kind of hit a nerve, or you were like, So, what were some of those things where you like, girl? What were some of those things that you listened to that you just was like, girl?
For me, it was two things that really stuck out for me. And one of them was having to be a super mom, right? Like having to do everything, not being able to count on anybody, or choosing not to, let me say it that way. Choosing not to count on anybody, just doing it all yourself, shouldering the burden yourself, because I don't have any immediate family in the area. My nearest family member is at least an hour and a half away. And even when I first became a single mom, that was the case then too. Actually, even married, that was our story. So that really sit with me, like just being a super mom, getting up, not taking time for myself, but just always my kids. And then the other point was when a married person says I'm on single parent duty, how it's so not the same.
Ma'am, no, you are not.
It's so not the same. And I can say that from the standpoint of having been married when my children were first born. And then, my then husband would go away for a while because he was in the military, and having the kids myself, and how that is still so very different than bearing that burden all by yourself all the time.
Well, you got the element of you got somebody paying half too now.
Oh, for sure that, right?
You know what I'm saying?
For sure that.
Yeah, you ain't single by no means. You got double checks coming in, or at least somebody that's, paying most of the bills for you. When you single, you looking up to the dollar gods like, I need $1.
Oh my God. And you know what? That actually was the thing that was most real for me, going from married to divorce and being a single parent, right? So that was the struggle, because my then husband had half of the income, but I had 3/4 of the family, right? So that was like, wait a minute, that was a real eye opener, and it hit hard, and the struggle was real.
Yeah.
So I guess my situation was a little different because I have always had a huge support system. So even when I was holding it down as a single mom, I remember, Melissa, you were saying that you were that mom that was like, I'm not watching your kids and you're not watching mine, period, right? And I feel you completely. I remember at the time I was working retail and my hours were really crazy, and I needed to utilize some help, right? It was either my job or, I needed help. My mom had a friend who was living in the city at the time. Well, her daughter was living in the city. So I didn't know her that well, but my mom gave me the green light. Our families knew each other. So it was, I was nervous taking my daughter there just because I didn't know her personally, but the fact that our moms knew each other, and she explained to me that she was a single mom at one point in her life. She was married then, but she understood that need to create that support system for yourself. So when I was listening to the podcast, the first one actually, one of the guests was saying that her and her girlfriends got together and they formed their own support system. I think that is probably some of the best advice that a single mom can receive at this time. You might not have family, but create your own family, right? Take those friends, whether they're single or married. If you trust them and you know they really have your back, take that S for the superwoman off your chest, put your pride aside, and accept the help. And I think that's one of the hardest things as single moms, or just moms or women, period. It's hard for us to accept help. So I think, being open to accepting help. When somebody asks, can I help you? Don't be so quick to say, no, I got it, I'm good. When you know really deep on the inside, you ain't good. You stressed out.
Sometimes, people just don't ask, right? You in your struggle and people don't ask. That's the reality. I was young, when I was like, I ain't watching nobody's kids. So, I was like not in reality because like I'm pregnant. And someone asked, can you watch my daughter? And I was like, okay. Well, the child was young enough where, I had to change her diaper. And I'm yelling from one room to my mother, like, Mommy, can you change this diaper? And she's like, what? Are you kidding? Like, you're pregnant. Like, were you asking somebody to change the diaper? Really? So it was, I was at the point, like, I knew I couldn't watch other people's kids because I was already like, okay, I'm overwhelmed with being this mom figure. But some people just simply don't ask you if you need help.
That is absolutely true. You're absolutely right. But on the flip side, there are people that ask and they really mean it, right? They offer it and we still will turn it down. I think for me, it's a pride thing where I would not accept help at some points in my life just because I thought I was I could handle it.
Yeah, or pride thing, or do you feel like somebody they gonna want something later?
No, I mean, like I said, my situation is a little different. I know it was people that really meant it and they didn't want anything in return. Like they knew my circumstances. They knew I needed the help, and they're like, Tiff, if you need help, just let me know. And I wouldn't. I mean, it would probably on those nights where I'm just exhausted and just didn't even know how I was making it, that it would cross my mind, but I'm like, nah, I'm good. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with Tiffany. I think for me, especially in the beginning, the adjustment to being a single mom, because I was known, right, in the community of my kids, like where they went to school, the football teams and things like that. Because I started this venture married and then I became a single mom, there were people who knew me and they would ask, hey, do you need me to help you with the boys? Anything you need? And I'm like, oh, no, I got it. And so I can completely understand where Tiff is coming from. And so that is actually the advice I give to single moms now is, one, don't reject help. You don't have to be a superwoman. And two, don't be afraid to ask for help, because sometimes people are drowning and we don't really know they're drowning because we're in our own little world, but we're willing to help someone not drown if I understand that you're drowning. And I can say that for me personally, right? Like I will be there for any of my friends. But sometimes I may not, I'll be like this. So I'm like, so I don't see that you're drowning, but if you call to me, oh, I'm drowning. Hey, I got you.
But I want you to talk about who Cassandra is today. I want you to talk about who Cassandra was when
even as
she
a
was
single
younger.
mom then, it was just, rejecting the help, like Tiffany said, because I felt like, oh, I'm in this situation. I got myself in this situation one way or the other. And so I should work through this situation. So definitely it was some pride issues in there that I had to let go. I didn't have to be Superwoman. I chose to be Superwoman. And I Like, that is my advice moving forward, right? Hey, don't put the S on your chest. You don't have to wear the S. So if I could speak to myself then, like, that is what I would say to me. But yeah, definitely I felt like, hey, I'm in this by myself. I got to do it by myself, but not from a standpoint that I thought people weren't genuine, because hey, a lot of the people, even though they weren't family, I knew them. I'd known them for years. And they knew me, so they probably were very genuine. And I later came to find out that they were, because when I got to that breaking point, and my mom was like, yeah, babe, I can't this week, right? Like, I can't make the hour and a half. I can't make the 2-hour drive trip to get them this week. And I'm like, crap, I got to do something. So then I did eventually have to learn to lean on other people.
Yeah. What was a pivotal moment in the podcast? I guess, first of all, like, what grabbed your attention? What did you think of the podcast in general when you listened to it? Like, what was your wow factor?
For me, one of the wow factors was, once again, as women, how much we juggle at one time. And in the first podcast, there were 2 women that spoke about going back to school, getting their degrees, being caregivers for sick family members, still just layering life, layer after layer after layer. And at the end of the day, still trying to figure out how did I even do this, right? And to me, it's just that we go into that survivor mode, right? And don't even realize that eventually it's going to catch up with us. So I think that's another thing. As single moms, we are so into our day-to-day routine that we never step back and actually assess the situation to see what we can do different also. I know for me, that's what it was. You're in your routine. And at the end, it finally gets to a point, you're like, how did I even get through that? Well, we know through the grace of God, but definitely with that, with the first podcast, that definitely stuck out to me when the women were sharing their testimonies about all the things that they accomplished as single moms. It just, honestly, I got emotional, because I'm like, we are definitely, a lot of times we need to take the S off our chest, but it's always there. It seems to always be there.
I don't want to take the S off my chest, because the S has given me the tenacity to utilize it in other areas. So I think, when you talk about being that person that, you keep going, it's called survival. Like, if not me, who? Right? If you're in a single mother mode, if not me, who? If I don't advance myself like those women did, and some of them are working on doctorates now, but like, if they didn't go through to advance themselves to get the things that they need for their kids, if not me, then who? You have a network, obviously, but your network's not paying, the light bill. Your network's not paying your rent. So you go through a survival mentality, and like you said, you keep running, but eventually you hit a brick wall, right? So, how do what's your advice on not hitting a brick wall without taking the S off your chest? Because you need that S for stuff.
Balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't, taking the S, being super is awesome, because we are all super, like, we were created to be super, but understanding what it means to be super, right? Being super doesn't mean I have to do it all alone, because you can create a community where we all are super together. I push you, you push me, and that doesn't mean that you have to take the S off your chest, but it doesn't mean you have to carry 1,000 pounds by yourself, right? We can together carry the pounds a whole lot easier than you can carry it by yourself. You asked the question, what really stuck out? One of the things that really, a lot of it resonated with me, actually almost all of it really resonated with me. But when they talked about dating, right? So getting to that place where you were dating, I could really relate to the ladies who were like, I spent all this time just being mom. And then when the kids were older, you're like, okay, now let me look for me. And that's kind of the situation that I'm in my life now too, right? My kids are finally grown. They're living their own lives. They don't need me to mother them the same way that I was mothering them before. I don't have to be the taxi. I don't have to do the things that I was doing before. But the interesting point about how the kids felt about them dating, and I've seen that, like, that's been true for me too. Like, my oldest son had even said to me once, like, I like it like this. I don't want you to get married. I don't want you to date again. Granted, he was younger when he first said it. And so now that he's actually dating, he kind of tries to be the parent. So I could relate to that part about, don't neglect who we are as when we're single moms, giving everything to our kids that we forget us. So going back to the point about the S on our chest, we can't get into survival mode so much that we're not living, because there's definitely a difference between surviving and living. And I definitely was surviving for so long that I wasn't living and just really thriving in life. And what I was doing, it was like, okay, got to get up, got to get them to school, got to make sure they have this. All right, now I'm at work. Oh, I got to hurry up and get back. I got to make sure I beat the deadline, because there's a fee if you're not at daycare by this time. And you just get into that rat race, and that is literally survival.
It is survival, but I want you to look at it from a different lens. Like, we're looking at it from a lens of a corporate woman. Let's look at it from the lens and I personally was on food stamps, right? Look at it from that lens when you were on food stamps and you literally don't have any money. You have to figure out a way. You can't remove the S. Your friends may be in the same situation that you're in, so they can't really help you. So look at it from that lens and, say, do you really have time to invest in yourself at that point? Right?
Yeah. And the answer for me at that point was no. Like, I didn't think I did. Like, I didn't think that I had time to invest in myself. And so I didn't. I chose to put everything into my kids and making sure they had food to eat, making sure they had what they needed. And I would just come last. And that is exactly what survival is, right? Living another day.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's literally hard to think about anything else except for surviving. So, right. What was your way out, right? What was your way out, Tiffany? I want to hear. What was your way out, Cassandra? I want to hear that as well, because that's the message that we need to convey to these women that are looking to say, I'm in this hole and I don't know how to get out.
To answer the question of the women who are in the situation right now, right? They're in the hole right now and they're looking to get out. If looking back, what I wish I would have known then that I know now is take the time for yourself, even if it's 30 minutes at the end of the day, for you to sit down, do a list of what's going right and what has to change. And at that point, do your research as far as what resources are available to me. Even if everyone's on social media now, even if it's looking at different groups to be a part of your church family, a coworker, a neighbor, somebody. It definitely can get very lonely, right? But again, how we say you're going to have to create some type of community for yourself, because if the decisions that you keep making are not changing your circumstances, then you got to make some different choices if you want to get out of the hole. You shared that you went to a pastor, right? And he asked if you had a college degree, and that was like an aha moment. So it's like, change. If you're having the same conversations with the same people, it's going to be hard to get new information. So thinking outside of the box, and that's what I'm saying, like, take 30 minutes at the end of your day to just focus on what your plan is. And if you don't have a plan, that's the first thing you got to do. You got to come up with your own plan that works for you and yours. not what works for everybody else, a realistic plan that works for you. And then work off of that plan. Write it in pencil, because we know plans are made to, they change and you have to alter them. But if you don't have a plan in place, you're going to be all over the place. Me personally, when I was young, I didn't have a plan at all. Right. So I think when I finally sat down or fell on my butt and sat long enough to try to figure out, how am I going to get out of this hole? I don't like where I am right now. I keep putting off going back to school because I keep getting these jobs that seem like they're paying me good money. Looking back now, that was not the case, right? But I got so stuck in the routine that I never stopped long enough to really look at my plan, or either put a plan in place, evaluate that plan, and make the necessary changes, and ask for help. Figure out where you can get some advice, some resources, something to help you get out of your hole. You don't have to figure it out by yourself. You have to expose yourself to new ideas.
And I think you have to network with the right people, and finding the network is at churches, those people that have professional backgrounds. If you could sit down with them to help you build your plan. When you're thinking about it seriously from a standpoint of having to put food on the table and having to build a plan, you're not thinking about a plan. So you have to figure out, who's in your network, who's in the circle, who can I go to at the church that kind of can, like you said, help me, but help me understand where am I not balancing correctly? Where are there areas where I could cut? We are not taught how to budget. We are not taught finances. Mm-hmm. Right. So there could be areas where you can look at that you have your overspending, or look at programs that can help you. I had programs that was helping me pay my gas. Well, a lot of people don't know that exists. So, those are things that people, when you say don't lose a loan, people are not privy to. Right. There are organizations I don't mess with today, because when I was at my worst, they weren't able to help me. But that's what you're touting, right? You're touting that you can help. So anytime I see something to donate to them, the answer is no.
It is the importance of community, and what you said, Melissa, and both Tiffany, not losing a loan, right? Having the plan, even when it doesn't seem like there's a way out. We can't neglect ourselves. And I think that was one of the biggest pieces that helped me, right? Because I was so busy as a single mom doing. And when someone said to me once, but if you don't take care of you, who's going to take care of them? And so even in the midst of survival, we do have to take 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, to take a step back and figure out how to get out of the situation that we're in. And that's usually through community and networking, like you guys have said. And it was through the help of other people that I was able to get out. Like, people donated stuff to me. People just helped me with stuff until I was able to get on my feet and begin to be out of survival mode just enough to make different choices, right? Because when you're worried about where's food going to come from, where's shelter going to come from, where's all these things going to come from, then that is all you're thinking about. But when you have a community of people who can help you with those things, then that frees you up to be able to think outside of your immediate right now need.
Exactly. I know some of the women in the podcast talked about their hardest, toughest moments. And what would you say is one of your hardest, toughest moments of being a single parent?
You all definitely know my story is a little different. So for me, it would be the second go around. So after my first husband passed away, and it was just, me and my daughter. And for me, it was trying to put on this face that everything was perfect and everything was okay, right? I remember picking her up from, I want to go back to make sure we touch on the overcompensating part, so I don't forget that part, okay? But it was that aha moment that were not okay. When I picked her up from daycare one afternoon, and her daycare teacher, after school wasn't daycare, her after school teacher came to me and said that she was upset and she was crying. But she told her after school teacher she had to stop crying because my mom will be here soon, and I don't want her to know I was upset. I want her to, think that I'm okay. And that was an aha moment for me, in that it's okay not to be okay. And us teaching our children, here we put on these strong faces that we have everything together. It's almost like we protect them because we don't want them to see that vulnerable side of us. We don't want them to see us hurting, but we're also teaching them that it's not okay to be human. It's not okay for you to show emotion. So for me, that was a very hard time. It reminded me, okay, we're doing this again. I'm a single mom again. Let me stop acting like things are all okay, and let her know it's okay not to be okay. So for me, that was an aha moment. Like, okay, you know what? I'm teaching her wrong. It's so, baby, we can cry together. You don't have to wipe your tears before mom gets here because you feel like that's going to upset me. So I think making sure they know it's okay not to be okay was a real aha moment for me.
Okay. So have you ever been in situations like we talked about, not having food, being able to afford food and lights being turned off? Have you had situations like that? Or talking to either of you to answer the question, have you had situations like that?
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked after, but we were talking about getting cars repoed and situations like that, which are really detrimental. But the detrimental piece really is that we didn't let our kids see that, which is what you're talking about, Tiffany, is not letting them see really the struggle, but then you're not showing them how to overcome the struggle, because then they go into the overcompensation piece, and we go into the overcompensation piece, and they don't think that we're struggling, and we give them everything anyway.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and for me to talk about that, like my kids never saw that, but it was real for me, borrowing money from this person and that person to make sure I could feed them, having to break down and call my father. Like that was the hardest part. Like my dad and I didn't always have the best relationship. And so when I had gotten to the place that I had to ask him for money, like that was a real aha low point for me. And I was like, okay, I've got to do something different. Something's got to change, because if I'm going to my dad to ask for some money, times is tight. But now from that perspective, do my children know that? No, like we talk about it now, but in the moment, no. And so I think just for me personally, as I talk about this situation with them today, it didn't impact them. But I remember telling them Christmas was canceled, right? Like we weren't going to have Christmas. And I explained why we weren't going to have Christmas. And they were so okay with it, which is crazy. And at this point is where community, and I have an awesome family, even though they're not physically at the location that I'm in, Christmas was canceled from me, but they still were able to have a phenomenal Christmas. And as a result, one of the things that they like to do is they like to give back on Christmas. Like one year, my youngest son even said to me, Mom, I've gotten everything I've asked for from August to October, because that's his birthday month. And he was like, I don't even want anything for Christmas.
Yeah.
So that was just, again, the overcompensating piece, right? Is helping them understand what is important. It's not always getting everything you want, having the latest gaming system, having the most expensive Jordans, like helping them understand, hey, this struggle is real. And not so that they are appreciative for what they do have, instead of always talking about what they don't have. And that was a conversation I had with them at a young age.
It's interesting. Just now I thought about Christmas. I've been through some struggle, and I cannot tell you that I didn't cancel Christmas one time. One time. So talk about overcompensating and getting what you can afford so that you can make sure that the kid has. I can't think of one time that I canceled Christmas knowing I probably couldn't afford it, but still didn't cancel it. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that goes back to the overcompensating for the missing parent. But what lesson could my daughter have learned if I just said, "Hey, Christmas canceled"?
Yeah, exactly. And as you guys were talking, I was thinking about this one time. I remember my lights were turned off, and I remember telling Naya we were going to play like we were going camping, right? So we had flashlights out. I tried to make a game of it so that she had no idea what was really going on. Or I think about, I don't know if you guys remember, like the paycheck advances. Like I got myself, paying, like opening up credit cards to get cash advances, and then before you know it, your credit's all jacked up, right? You owe money out the wazoo, interest rates, late. I mean, just and for me, that's why I wanted to make sure we went back to the overcompensating. So you were talking about how we would overcompensate, and then we create these entitled children, right? And where if we just had I known then what I know now, right? Just really explaining what the situation was. So it's like we created a fairy tale. I can't say we, I did, because she was so oblivious to what was really going on behind the scenes. And I feel like if I would have, really let her know what was going on, I'm, calling my mom or my grandma or my dad, borrowing money here. I mean, borrowing vacuum cleaners because I didn't have a vacuum cleaner. I mean, just really just
selling CDs. I know I did that. I had to sell CDs to get some change. No, they had a place where you could sell your CDs, so they gave you some change for that. Pawn shop was my friend too. But but selling CDs, doing what you said, go and get cash advances, can't afford to pay it back, all that kind of stuff that you had to pay it back. It was a mess.
And that's one of the things, like, I want to make sure single moms know now we also have to be accountable for the part that we played in our situations, right? If we know we were never taught how to be responsible with our finances, find somebody who is and learn from them. Like, go ahead and break the cycle, because that we owe that to our children. We owe them the lesson of knowing how to be responsible with your finances. Because
I don't know if I'm agreeing with you on that one, Tiff. I'm gonna have to back because if you don't have money to finance, if you don't have money to budget, you can't budget it. That's what I'm talking about.
Tell you, I know plenty of single moms right now who, instead of spending the money on everybody's circumstances are different. But when I know that you're struggling, because we've been there, and kids have on new Jordans, or you're spending money on materialistic things, that's what I'm saying. We have got to, if you want to get out of your hole, then you have to make different decisions. That's all I'm saying. Like, not everyone, right? But I definitely know, and I was one of those where I know money that should have been paid on a bill, or money that should have been paid on a credit card, so I'm not getting late payments. I'm instead going to buy my daughter a toy to put a smile on her face, right? Because it's emotional spending instead of, making responsible decisions to get us out of our hole. So that's what I'm saying. For me, I know we overcompensate to put that smile on our child's face, but is it creating more stress for us? So that's what I'm saying. Like, as far as like us being, when I was a single mom, I didn't make the best financial decisions because I was more focused on making sure I put a smile on my child's face at times too.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. And I can agree with that. Like, there were times that I didn't spend the money right. Right?
Yeah, those are those times, and I get it. Like, I'm probably in that same boat at times. But at times, I didn't have two nickels to rub together. So,
Right.
those are the people that we want to be cognizant of and empathetic to. Like, if we're telling them
For
to
sure.
budget, but there is
Absolutely.
nothing to budget, how do I get out of my hole? You're not helping me. You're not helping me get out of my hole by telling me I need to budget because I have nothing to budget. So I think the plan, like when you said, look at your plan, look at your community, and see how they can help you move that plan.
That's right.
Is sufficient. Like, something that I would have looked at in some of my situations.
That's right. And once you come up with that plan, making sure that you have an idea, or just you need to learn. You also, when you come up with that plan on how you're going to get out of your hole, I'm also saying, in addition to that, you also need help on how to budget. So when the
Yeah.
2 nickels you have turn into multiple nickels, right? We need to make sure they're spent on you're investing in your future, because we're emotional people. Like, we spend emotionally, right? So if you have an extra $20, you know what? Let me pocket this for a rainy day, opposed to going out and spending it on something that might make us feel good temporarily. So I definitely did a lot of temporary fixes where I should have been saving money for bills, or to get me out of debt back when I was, going through my single mom days.
And I think, to the point that Tiffany was making too, now that we're in the situation that we're in, like, no one personally taught me what I should do with finances and how to make sound financial decisions. So my goal is to equip my children to make better financial decisions than I did, so that hopefully they don't find themselves in the situation that I found myself. So, to the point that Tiffany was making before, breaking the cycle. Once I know better, I do better. And I don't just do better, I educate the next generation so that they will also do better.
Yeah, but we ain't talking about the next generation today. We talking about single moms. Stop taking it off the track, ma'am.
The single moms
But that's-
raising
but-
the next generation.
Right. Right. So that's what I'm saying. As a single mom today, as we are getting out, let's not forget to teach those that we are the single moms to, how to not walk the same step that we walk. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but all of that is baby steps, right? So
For sure.
it's baby steps, and all of that is in that community of folks that you can
sure.
look at and understand how each person can help you. There might be some accountants in there that will show you how to do that, but at the end of the day, you shouldn't have to necessarily go seek these people out, because if you're in a church, right? Those people should see you and offer some type of help to you. Hey, let me look at what you're doing financially. That's what I can offer you. I don't have money to give you, but let me offer you some guidance on how you're budgeting. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I've necessarily seen that in church proactively, right? There are churches that will offer some of those things to, as I guess, I don't know, I don't even see it, be honest with you. Like, do you see
I know
financial
my
literacy
church-
classes in churches?
Yeah, I actually, so when I became a single mom, the church that I was attending actually had a class called Crown Financial. And it talked about learning to be financially sound, and it had Bible-based things, and it talked about spending and places you can go to get help.
Today, do you see that today is the question.
Yes.
You seeing it
So
today
my
in
church-
churches?
Yeah.
My church today actually has
Yeah.
multiple ministries that you, as a member of the church, and actually even with COVID, they invite, even non-members to join those different Zoom classes that they have for various things to just add value to your life. So I think also, when you're a member of a church and they have these different ministries, to make yourself a part of those ministries, you also have to make yourself seen, right? So I feel like a lot of times, if we're going to churches and we're just going to the morning worship service and going home, then it's going to be hard for people to realize that you need help. But if you are a part of the church and you're involving yourself in those different ministries, for one, you're just going to befriend people, right? And
Yeah.
once you start talking to people, then it's going to be like, oh, you know what? This is a single mom. Let me connect. If I can't help her, let me connect her with somebody or a different ministry. So it's, again, like you said, Melissa, it's that networking. So my church definitely, my church definitely has ministries for all types of people in different walks of their life.
Well, you probably go to a mega church, right? But
No.
we getting way off track as far as the churches. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole either. But if in our last couple of minutes, what advice would you give your younger self as a single mom, knowing what you know today?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to let people help you.
Okay.
I would tell my younger self to create a plan for myself and execute the plan and utilize as many resources as you possibly can. It's okay to ask for help.
Yeah. I don't know
What
what I would tell.
Melissa? Is there anything
I was
you
just
would say
thinking
to your
about
younger
it.
self?
I mean, I think I would probably tell my younger self to make better decisions.
Sure.
There have been opportunities that I've passed up because I've been a single mom, and I knew I would have to travel, like when I've gotten into certain roles and stuff like that. But I didn't do it because I was a single mom. I think I would have researched more different, majors in college that I could have majored in. I wish somebody had told me more about engineering and stuff like that, so that I wouldn't have had to struggle as a single mom trying to figure out what to do with my path. And like you said, just making more viable connections, because I'm gonna be honest, as I think along my career, it wasn't necessarily people that looked like me that helped me. It was other people that didn't look like me that offered a ton of stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would have made better decisions in that manner. And Tiffany, a lot of what you're saying is budgeting, but if you ain't got money, you ain't thinking about no budget. Even in, I think I would have done better if I knew if I was able to save for college tuition,
Yeah, I mean, even like when I say budgeting, like half of us, when I was young, we didn't even know about paying bills. We didn't even know the consequences if you pay your bills late. We didn't know about late fees. We didn't know about, so that's what I'm saying. I mean, if we're exposed to that, when you get your money right, you're starting off the right way, right? So it's almost like reading the instruction manual before you actually start doing something.
Okay, well, that I could say, but that's before you become a single parent. You're talking about before you even have kids. Like, if you're starting to do that in high school, looking at your budget and those things, that's before you become a single parent. I'm saying when you're already in it,
even while you are a single parent, we multitask as single mamas, right? We multitask. So one of the things that we need to add on to that is, all right, I got to figure out a plan. I got to figure out a financial plan. I got to figure out a plan for all these different parts of our lives so that I can change our situation. Like, even
we gonna agree to disagree on that, because because I think when you're in it, it is too difficult to think about the money I don't already have. Now, you could put a plan there to say, okay, I need to go back to school because I need to make X amount of money. That could be the beginning part of your plan. And then when you go back to school, you're making the money. Now I got to look at how am I going to budget this thing. But when you're thinking, at least for me, when I didn't have money, I was thinking I don't have any money. I was thinking my lights are turned on, my heat and my hot water are turned off. I don't have any money. There's nothing. So, when you don't have, you sputting around on E and you can't even put gas in your tank, you're not thinking about budgeting that money.
And that goes to, when I said at the end of the day, you have to separate some time out so that you can stop your brain from going 1,000 miles per hour, for you to sit down and figure out, what am I going to do, because this isn't working for us, right? I mean, yeah, I guess maybe we're saying the same thing, but saying it two different ways. But
I think we're saying it out of order. Your order is look at it financially. My order is flipping it. I need to figure out the plan first. How am I getting myself out of it? And once I figure out the plan, then I'll look at the financial piece. We're just flip-flopping. You're saying
financial advisors will tell you it's actually the other way around, right? So even if you only are making $7 an hour, right? What do you do with that $7 an hour that you're making?
It's going to my rent. That's what I'm trying to get through to you guys. It's like, I get it. I'm making $7 an hour. Yes. But if all of that, what comes in, is going directly back out, are you saying that I need to now look at somewhere else to live somewhere cheaper? Well, I don't want to live somewhere else cheaper, right? If I want my kids in the same school,
then you got to change the plan. You got to come up. That's what I'm saying. Without a plan, you're going to stay in the same situation. So if you're making $7 an hour and that's not covering your rent, then that might be a sacrifice. You got to have a plan so you can figure out what you can do different. Where am I going to have to make some sacrifices? We've all been in that situation. Like, obviously, we want to live somewhere where we feel safe, right? But okay, you know what?
It wasn't safe. It was for the schools. I want my kids to be in the best schools, right? So it wasn't. That's where I was picking where I was, and then rent for me, it wasn't as bad here in Georgia. But I'm just saying that there are some people that make $7 an hour. All their money is going towards rent. I mean, you can only find, unless you get a room. Rent ain't cheap.
No, rent is not cheap at all. So, and I guess my point is, when you look at how much you're bringing home, if you're just paying the bills without a plan, this is how much I'm making, this is how much my lights are, this is how much my rent is, this is how much my groceries are, this is how much I have, this is how much I need, then, okay, I got to figure out how I'm going to make up for this difference. If it's because I need to go ask my manager if I can have extra hours, are there other positions that I can take on where I'm still, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I agree with that. That I agree with, but I'm talking about the people that don't have any money. That's what I'm talking about.
They still have to have a plan to get out of their situation. I mean,
it doesn't necessarily have to be the budgeting piece of it, right? The plan is, do I need to go back to school? Do I need to go to rely on the people at the church? That is plan A for me. What do I need to look at
all
first?
Of that still
do I already have a degree? Am I
still,
not maximizing the college degree? That's what I'm talking about.
But all of that, to Tiffany's point, still comes back to the money piece of it.
Right.
It does.
Right?
But
so
we're going to agree to disagree, because I'm not thinking from a perspective. I'm thinking of somebody who's in survival mode. Nobody cares about a budget when you're in survival mode, period.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So thank you, ladies, for joining the podcast. I'm glad that we were able to argue it out at the end. I still don't agree with your ass. And I cussed on the podcast.
And that's why I love you, because we agree to disagree a lot.
Yeah. Listen, you have been listening to Girl Talk with my girls, special edition. They'll be back next month, but make sure you listen in when we drop this in a couple of weeks and catch up on the other podcasts. Remember, I see you because I am you.